You want me to begin?
بسم الله. نعم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخزع لها كل شيء وذل لها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحت كل إسلام. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النكام. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعام. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء. اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلحمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بكسمك راضيا قانعا وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا. اللهم أسألك سؤال من اشتدت طاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وأزمع فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم أزمع سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكروك وزهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لكبائه ساترا ولا لشيء من عملي الكبيح بالحسنة مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي وتجرعت بجحني وسكنت إلى كريم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي كم من كبيح سترت وكم من فادح من البلاء أكلت وكم من إيثار وكيت وكم من مكروه دفعت وكم من ثناء جميل لست أحلمه نشرت اللهم عظم بلائي وأفرط بي سوء حالي وكسرت بي أعمالي وكدأت بي أغلالي وحبسني عن نفعي بعد أعمالي وخذتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بجنايتها ومثالي يا سيدي فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي ولا تفزحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تؤاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكسرة شهواتي وغفلتي وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا ولي في جميع الأمور أطوفا إلهي وربي من لي غيره أسأله كشف ذري والنظر في أمري إلهي ومولاي أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي فغرني بما أحوى وأسأله على ذلك القضاء وتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعض حدوده وخالفت بعض أوامرك فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك وألزمني حكمك وبلاؤك وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستكيلا مستغفرا منيبا مكرا مذئنا معترفا لا أجد مفرا من مكان مني ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك أزري وإدخالك إياي في سعة من رحمتك اللهم فاقبل أجري وارحم شدة ذري وفكني من شد وصاكي يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني وركة جلدي ودكة عزمي يا من بدا خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي هبني لابتداء كرمك وصالف برك بي يا إلهي وسيدي وربي أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك وبعد ما انطوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك ولحجابه ولساني من ذكرك واعتقده ضميري من حبك وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تزيئ من ربيت أو تبعد من أدنيت أو تشرد من آويت أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمته وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي قد سلت النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدا وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقا وبشكرك مادحا وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققا وعلى زمار حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة وعلى جوارح سأت إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة وشارت باستغفارك مزئنا ما هكذا الظن بك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك أنت يا كريم يا رب يا كريم يا رب يا كريم يا رب وأنت تعلم ضعفي أن قليلا من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها ألا أن ذلك بلاء مكروه قليل مكسور يسير بكاء كثير مدته فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها هو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي فكيف بي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحكير المسكين المستكين يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما من هذا الجوع أبكي لأليم العذاب وشدته أم نتول البلاء ومدته فلئن سيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ربي صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك وحبني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي أفوق فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني نعتكا لأزجن إليك بين أهلها زجيجا آمنين ولا أصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين ولا أبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين ولا أنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين يا غاية آمال العارفين يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا غياث المستغيثين يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين ويا إله العالمين أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته وذاك طعم عذابها بمعصيته وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته وهو يزج إليك زجيج مؤمل رحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسلوا إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي. فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك؟ أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يهلكه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفها؟ أم كيف يتكلكل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقها؟ أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رب؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في يدك منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات ما ذلك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما عملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك. فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحدي وكزيت به من إخلاد معاندي لجلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما وما كان لأحد فيها مكرا ولا مقاما لكنك تكدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين وأن تجلى سناؤك كنت مبتدئا وتتولت بالإنعام متكرما أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي كترتها وبالكزية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها أن تحب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمت وكل ذنب أذنبت وكل قبيح أسررت وكل جهل عملت كتمته أو أعلنت أخفيته أو أظهرت وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي وكنت أنت الركيب على من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أخفيت وبفضلك سترت وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلت أو إحسان فضلت أو بر نشرت أو رزق بسطت أو ذنب تغفر أو خطأ تستر يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك ملكي يا من بيده ناصيتي يا عليما بزري ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفكري وفاكتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب أسألك بحقك وقدسك وعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي في الليل والنهار بذكرك مأمورا وبخدمتك موصولا وأعمالي عندك مقبولا حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها ولدا واحدا وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا يا سيدي يا من عليه مولي يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب قوي على خدمتك جوارحي واشدد على العزيمة جوانحي وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في اتصال بخدمتك حتى أسرح إليك في ميادين السابقين وأسرع إليك في البارزين وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين وخافك مخافة الموقنين واجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرده ومن كادني فكده واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك واقربهم منزلة من وخسهم زلفة لديك فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك وجود لي بجودك وعطف علي بمجدك واحفظني برحمتك واجعل لساني بذكرك الحجاب وقلبي بحبك متيما ومن علي بحسن إجابتك وكلني أسرتي واغفر زلتي فإنك كزيت على عبادك بعبادتك وأمرتهم بدعائك وزمنت لهم الإجابة فإليك يا ربي نسبت وجهي وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي وبلغني مناي ولا تعتع من فضلك رجائي واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي يا سريع الرزق يا سريع الرزق يا سريع الرزق اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء فإنك فعال لما تشاء يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء وصلاحه البقاء يا سابغ النعم يا دافع النكام يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام يا عالما لا يعلم صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بي ما أنت أهله وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا
اللهم صل
اللهم
على
صل
محمد
على
وعلى
محمد وعلى
آل
محمد.
Jazakallah, Brother Daniel. May Allah accept your recitation. Assalamu alaikum, Chair. Hope you're doing
Assalamu
well.
alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you, thank you. Inshallah, everyone has a good new year. And on this night, we're going to, inshallah, discuss a little bit of Nahjul Balagha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الخطبة 29 أيها الناس المجتمعة أبدانهم المختلفة أهواؤهم كلامكم يوهي الصم السلاب وفعلكم يطمع فيكم الأعداء تقولون في المجالس كيت وكيت فإذا جاء القتال قلتم حيدي حيادي. Khutbah number 29 of Nahjul Balagha goes back to the history following and ensuing the tahkim, or the arbitration that took place after the Battle of Siffin, and how Muawiyah was wreaking havoc and raging war on different parts of the Muslim lands. After the battle, this is something that we've spoken about again and again because the khutbahs keep going back to it. Khutbah number 25 was about the same thing. Khutbah number 27, same thing. Khutbah 29 also now is talking about the same thing. Some have said, as a matter of fact, that this khutbah, which has been narrated in many sources actually, so it seems to be a very reliable, authentic report in Nahjul Balagha, they have said that this is actually part of khutbah number 27 and the continuation of it. Some believe that. But all in all, what's going on here is it has to do with the looting and the plundering and the battles that took place. The little battles, you can't even call them battles. They were more of strike and run and hit and run episodes that took place after the Battle of Siffin and after the Battle of Nahrawan, actually, where the Kufans, who were the army of who were making up the army of Imam Ali alayhi salam, just, they just gave up. They just didn't want anything to do with fighting anymore. And so Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam keeps scolding them because he says, look, it's now or never. Islam is in danger, and Muawiyah is gaining more and more power after the Hakamiyya, or the Tahkim, after the Battle of Siffin. Yes, Muawiyah, kind of retained his sovereignty and authority over the Shamat and the lands of Sham. And so he started having his people attack different parts of the Muslim lands in order to strike fear, to bring instability to those parts of the world. And so it was hurting the hukuma and the jurisdiction of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, those lands that were under his jurisdiction. One of those incidents is being referred to as in this khutbah number 29. It says that this khutbah was issued and was given after a person by the name of Dhahak ibn Qais. After Dhahak ibn Qais had attacked some Hujjaj, some people who were going for Hajj or who were returning from Hajj, and had, taken the lives of some of them and hurt some of them. So in this khutbah, Imam Ali alayhi salam is speaking about Dhahak ibn Qais. Now, when you read the khutbah, though, you don't find his name there, but this title has been given by Sayyid al-Radi, the compiler of Nahjul Balagha, has been given to the khutbah. And so Dhahak ibn Qais, he's a person that I might speak about more in the future because he's also an important figure. He's not just your normal general or your normal police chief. So inshallah we'll get to that. But in a nutshell, Dhahak plays a very important role during the time of Muawiyah and after Muawiyah's death even. He fills in for Yazid because Yazid wasn't in town when Muawiyah died, they say. And so what happens is Dhahak, He's the one who helps out a lot. He helps the Umayyads out. He helps the Bani Umayyah out and makes sure that things are under control after Muawiyah dies. He prays over Muawiyah, delivers a eulogy from what I remember for Muawiyah, all of that stuff. But you know what's funny is that, and what's very ironic, is the same clan and tribe that he served, he ended up fighting against and dying and losing his life over later on. And that's something that I'll get to later. Dahak eventually went on the side of Zubayr, Abdullah bin Zubayr, and al-Zubayr, and ended up fighting the Bani Umayyah, who were trying to take power later on. So that's something, inshallah, I think I will talk about later. But for now, let's get to the actual khutbah. As I said, this has to do with those gharat and those attacks that were made on the Muslim lands that were under the rule of Imam Ali alayhi salam after the Battle of Nahrawan, when Muawiyah noticed that Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam doesn't have too much support anymore by his people, and his people are tired and don't want to continue fighting. Not just tired, we'll get to it, inshallah, we'll talk about this more. It's not just that they were tired, there was more to it, they say, than that. So according to Ibn Abil Hadid, who is, the most famous commentator of Nahjul Balagha, you can say, Ibn Abil Hadid, when he's explaining this khutbah, this is the context he gives it. He says that in order for Muawiyah to bring about and cause fear and strike fear in the hearts of the people, he summons the Dahhak ibn Qais and ordered him to move towards Kufa. And on the way to Kufa, whoever he gets his hands on that are, obedient to Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam, that believe in Amirul Mu'mineen and his rule, to attack them, to somehow hurt them, plunder their wealth, and do something wrong, bad to them, and maybe even kill them. And that he should not stop and stay anywhere. Just he has to constantly be on the move. Okay, these are the orders according to Ibn Abil Hadid, Muawiyah's orders to Dahhak ibn Qais, to the point that he says, I don't want you staying anywhere. That he says, if you are in a city during the day, I want you to be somewhere else at nighttime. Like, don't stay in any city that long, and never ever fight and try to fight the forces of Ali ibn Abi Talib if they intercept you and they want to fight you. Just run away. I want you to just go out there, hit and run, strike fear, strike fear into the hearts of the people. I want you to bring insecurity to these lands, because as you all know, when there is insecurity, no matter how much wealth you even have, no matter how good the economic situation is, if you don't have security, if you fear for your life, then nothing is really worth it anymore. So that's what these orders were from Muawiyah to Dahhak ibn Qais. So it says Dahhak, with about 4,000 troops, he makes his way out. Wherever he would go, he would kill, he would plunder and loot, and anyone that was under the allegiance of Ali ibn Abi Talib, was obedient to Amir al-Mu'mineen, he would take their life. And then he reaches a caravan of Hujjaj. So as I said, this khutbah, they say, according to Sayyid al-Radi, he's titled it such, that the attack of Dahhak on the Hujjaj. Yeah. It says here that this caravan, it has a person by the name of Amr bin Umays in it, who is the nephew of Abdullah bin Mas'ud, that famous companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he says that he killed all of them and he made them shaheed. This individual and the group that was with him. And so Amir al-Mu'mineen, he hears of this. He sees that his own people are getting weak. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. And so he delivers this sermon. And so now let's get into the sermon itself. Once again, you can tell that Amir al-Mu'mineen is upset with his people. You can tell that this is the last hope that he might have, that this might shake them, these harsh words that he is delivering to them. But there are some nice points and lessons to take from it as well for us. He says, أيها الناس المجتمعة أبدانهم المختلفة أهواؤهم. This is beautiful. Like right from the get-go, these as some of these younger guys say, Imam Ali is spitting fire. He's really hitting the nail on the head with the way he's saying things. He says, "O people, al-mujtami'atu abdanahum, whose bodies have come together and are gathered in one place." In other words, there's unity amongst their bodies and physical selves. Al-mukhtalifatu ahwa'ahum, but they are disunited when it comes to their hearts, what's going on inside of them, right? So is this unity or not? No, this is not unity. This does not represent unity at all. Some people are always of this understanding, and it's a very superficial way of looking at things, that as long as we have numbers, we have unity. No, how much have you worked on the hearts of the people? Yeah, lots of times you'll find people, they'll say, yeah, like so and so, such and such group, they're not unified. Why? Because they're low in numbers, and we're more in numbers. But when you look at what has brought this group together versus what has brought that group together, yeah, and you shed off that physical aspect in your judgment, yeah, what happens is you'll find that the ones who actually have unity in this group that's higher in number, they're less than that group who's less in number physically. Yeah, sometimes this is the case. I've had cases like this. Some people say, there's no unity there, there's no unity here, this, that. But when you look at the ideologies of the people, you'll find that they're more unified actually when they're smaller in number. So what matters, brothers and sisters, and the criterion for unity, I would say, at first and foremost, begins with ideology, not with the abdan, the word that the Imam uses here, the abdan, the bodies. Yes, it's the hearts that have to be closer. And I think the best thing that brings the hearts close together and unifies them is the ideology that heart carries. Yes. So here, Amir al-Mu'mineen is pointing out that, look, you guys, you think you're all that, you think there's something there's nothing going on here, because you're a bunch of bodies that have come close to each other and gathered, or else your ahwa, your hearts, are far apart from each other. Al-mukhtalifatu ahwa'uhum. كلامكم يوهي الصم السلاب وفعلكم يطمع فيكم الأعداء. Once again, very beautiful, where he says, what he's saying is, your words, your speech, yes, your war cries are such that they can weaken and break the sum as-silab. Sum means deaf, something that can't hear. And the commentators of Nahjul Balagha have explained that in this context, it's referring to stones that cannot hear, of course. So stones that cannot hear are deaf, and our silab are hard and solid. Yeah. It says your war cries, your speech, your words, the stuff you say is so powerful and strong that it can destroy the harshest and stiffest and stones out there. Yeah, that's when it comes to your words. But do you actually walk the walk as well? وَفِعْلُكُمْ, as for your actions and what you do. So those were your words, kalamukum. What about your actions? Do they match what you say and claim? Yeah. فِعْلُكُمْ يُطْمِعُ فِيكُمُ الْأَعْدَاءِ. That your actions, what do? They let me see if I can figure. Action attracts your enemy towards you, the translation says here. Yutmi'u comes from the word tama'. When you have tama' in something, yeah, that means you are interested in it. You look forward to it. You're attracted to it and inclined. Okay? So Amir al-Mu'mineen, really, this is like a very big a shot at these people. Yeah, he's straight up taking a heavy shot at them. He says, you're all talk. If it was only if fighting was only about words, you have the strongest fighting ever. You are so strong because you can destroy the hardest stones. You shatter them with your words. If it was all about words, but it's not. Fighting is about action, and so fi'lukum. When I look at your action, what do I see? I see something that attracts the enemy to you. if your actions were as loud as your words, then you can be sure the enemy would never be interested in fighting you. But the enemy is interested in coming towards you. It shows that there is a total gap between what you say and what you're actually doing or you're going to do. Think about it. There are some people out there, they're just good at talking, right? And good at starting something, as they say. Yeah? You want to start something? You want to start something? The guy, when he listens, if the guy listens to this guy's words, all they can hear is, okay, someone wants to put up a big fight. But then when they actually look at the guy who's saying the words, the guy is some scrawny weakling who can't even pick up 20 pounds. So this person will be inclined towards fighting someone like that. Some people, that's just how they are. Even in this world that we live in, they're all about talking a lot, yeah, and trash talking maybe, and all that kind of stuff. But like when it comes time to fight, that guy is knocked out in 2 seconds, right? So here Amir al-Mu'minin, he's taking a heavy shot at them. He's saying that's your example. Your example is that of a person who talks a lot, but when the time comes to fight, yeah, everyone's interested in fighting them. Think about it. If there's like 10 people there standing, and there's one person who has to fight one out of these 10 people, right? And they look for the weakest one and they say, I want to fight this guy. That's really a diss, you know? It shows that you're the weakest one. You're the one that this person has the most hope in defeating in a fight, right? Amir al-Mu'minin here, he takes that heavy shot at these people. تقولون في المجالس كيت وكيت فإذا جاء القتال قلتم حيدي حيادي. He says, when you're sitting amongst yourselves in gatherings, you say this and that. Kaita wa kait. Okay, this is an expression in Arabic. You say, you say this and that. You say different things. You're all about talk again. You're just talking. فَإِذَا جَاءَ الْقِتَالِ. But when the time comes to fight, when war comes your way, قُلْتُمْ حِيدِي حَيَادِي. Get away from me. Shoo, shoo, stay away. Once again, a very heavy shot Amir al-Mu'minin takes at the Kufans. It's very scary, man. It's very scary because these are the same Kufans that helped Amir al-Mu'minin out in the beginning. Really, you can be sure that Amir al-Mu'minin was very proud of them in the beginning. The Battle of Jamal went pretty well, you know, but it reaches this point that when they are gathered together, they're just talking, saying all kinds of stuff. Their war cries have filled the room. Then when the actual war happens, what are they saying now? Is it the same war cries? No, they're saying, shoot, get away from me, get away. And this is just like what the Quran talks about when it comes to people of the time of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, during the time of the Prophet, there were a lot of, you might be able to say the majority were still strong and on the Prophet's side and at his side, and aiding him. But during Amir al-Mu'minin's time, it seems to be that the majority were the ones who were the weak ones and Amir al-Mu'minin was addressing. But the Quran speaks about the same thing and the same concept. Yes, it brings it up in Surah Ahzab. It says, قَدْ يَعْلَمُ and this was a very important battle, the Battle of Ahzab. Very, very important. قَدْ يَعْلَمُ اللَّهُ الْمُعَوِّقِينَ مِنْكُمْ وَالْقَائِلِينَ لِإِخْوَانِهِمْ هَلُمَّ إِلَيْنَا وَلَا يَأْتُونَ الْبَأْسَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Yeah, verses 18 and 19 of Surah Ahzab. أَشِحَّةً عَلَيْكُمْ فَإِذَا جَاءَ الْخَوْفُ رَأَيْتَهُمْ يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَيْكَ تَدُورُ أَعْيُنُهُمْ كَالَّذِي يُغْشَى عَلَيْهِ مِنَ الْمَوْتِ. This is very nicely illustrating something for us here. I'll go to the translation in a minute. فَإِذَا ذَهَبَ الْخَوْفُ سَلَقُوكُمْ بِأَلْسِنَةٍ حِدَادٍ أَشِحَّةً عَلَى الْخَيْرِ أُولَٰئِكَ لَمْ يُؤْمِنُوا فَأَحْبَطَ اللَّهُ أَعْمَالَهُمْ وَكَانَ ذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ يَسِيرًا. This is scary because this verse is talking about people that are not in the advent of Islam. Towards the end, when one of those last battles, major battles, if not the last major battle that was defensive, was the Battle of Ahzab. Okay, I know there was Hunayn and maybe a couple other ones after this, but those are later on, and they are offensive in a sense. But here you have the Battle of Ahzab is totally defensive. It's the battle of the trench. They dug the trench around Medina, or at least around the vulnerable points of Medina, because there was a whole group, or you can say a coalition, coming to just wipe out Islam for good. This was their last chance, and they eventually were defeated. But anyway, so way into the message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, way into the life of the Prophet, and after he had invited the people to Islam, you still have this problem. What's going on here? Let's translate the verses. It says, Allah, verily Allah knows the mu'awwiqeen minkum, those who are refraining others from fighting. So you have people in Medina, telling others not to fight in the battle of Ahzab. Like, come on, all these years have passed. You've seen the miracles of Allah. You've seen the aid of Allah in the likes of the Battle of Badr and so on. Yet you still are like this. It's pretty scary, actually. So verily Allah knows these people, the ones who are refraining from fighting and forbidding others from fighting. And al-qa'ilina li-ikhwanihim, and the ones who are telling their brothers. You see, Allah describes them as your brothers at the end of the day. Yeah? These are your brothers that you're speaking to and telling them not to aid the Holy Prophet. In other words, you're supposed to want the best for them, and to want the best for them in this context is to let them aid the Prophet, not to forbid them and tell them not to help the Prophet out. Al-qa'ilina li-ikhwanihim. So here, ikhwan doesn't necessarily mean that the brothers in faith, because in the end of the verses, it says these people don't even believe. They're not even believers. So here, brothers is saying, look, you guys, you're supposed to care for each other, have each other's backs, help each other out. You're from the same tribe. You should want the best for each other, and the best for these people is to let them go fight. And then you're telling them, don't fight. Al-qa'ilina li-ikhwanihim halumma ilayna, come to us, meaning what? Stay back, don't go. Stay behind. وَلَا يَأْتُونَ الْبَأْسَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. And if they have to fight, these ones, they'll fight a little bit, maybe throw a couple stones and run away or something, Ashihatan alaykum. These people, they are very, very stingy when it comes to you. Don't think that they care for you. فَإِذَا جَاءَ الْخَوْفُ رَأَيْتَهُمْ يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَيْكَ. When fear actually comes their way, and they're actually frightened, what happens is they look at you, O Prophet, or O people, they look at you while their eyes, it's as if their eyes are rolling in their eye sockets. When someone is about to pass out, or when someone gets shot, God forbid, or dies on the spot or something, one of the first things that happens is their eyes roll upwards, right? And you can't see their pupil anymore. Like the Quran here says, you see their eyes roll upwards like a person that's about to faint. كَالَّذِي يُخْشَى عَلَيْهِ, like the one who faints. That's how weak they are, that the slightest fear comes their way, all of a sudden this is what they look like. يُخْشَى عَلَيْهِ مِنَ الْمَوْتِ, the one who faints from death, meaning that their soul wants to depart. It's as if their soul wants to depart. فَإِذَا ذَهَبَ الْخَوْفُ, but then when the fear is gone, سَلَقُوكُمْ بِأَلْسِنَةٍ حِدَادٍ, they will come at you with the sharpest tongues. أَشِحَّةً عَلَى الْخَيْرِ, now they're very greedy over what? Over the war spoils. So when it's time to do the work, they're not there, and they're about to pass out. You feel like they're about to die, their soul's about to depart. But then when it comes time to distribute and share the war spoils, they've got the sharpest tongues, they've got the highest expectations. أُولَٰئِكَ لَمْ يُؤْمِنُوا, these people haven't even believed in Allah. And as a result, Allah has destroyed their actions. Yes, their actions have sunk to nothingness. Allah's not going to accept their actions on the Day of Judgment. So this is during the Prophet's time, with the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when things are even clearer. Because there you have Muslim versus mushrik. Let alone here where it's not the Prophet salawatullah wasalamu alayhi. It's Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. One. And two, you're fighting other Muslims in this battle. Yeah, Muslims on the outside at least, the people of Muawiyah. So you will expect that there will be less help, less support for Amir al-Mu'minin. If this was the case during the Prophet's time in Surah Ahzab verses 18 to 19, then for sure it's going to be the same and worse for Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. All right. ما عزت دعوة من دعاكم ولا استراح قلب من قاساكم. Okay, so what am I supposed to do, Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, he says. Am I supposed to force you guys to fight? Or am I supposed to leave it to you and ask you to come and fight? Which one of them? Well, let's see what happens if I do either of these two. If I invite you to fight, I call you to my side and to my aid, what's going to happen? Ma azzat da'watu man da'akum. The da'wah, the call of the one who calls you has no izzah in your eyes, has no significance, is not aziz in your eyes. When something is aziz in Arabic, that means it has significance, right? In Farsi, maybe in Urdu, aziz means something that's beloved. And also in Arabic, sometimes it can be used for that. But izzah usually means something that has significance and power and strength and greatness and things like that. He says, look, if I invite you, if I call you to come, ma azzat da'wa or da'watu man da'akum, it won't have any significance. All right, so what option are we left with? We're left with the option of me forcing you to fight. So let's just say if I was to force you. Brothers and sisters, there's two ways to force, okay? One is the way of the Bani Umayyah, the Hajjaj bin Yusufs of history, the Ibn Ziyads of history. And there's another way to force, and that's the way that Amir al-Mu'minin might force. How does he force? By delivering sermons like these. Yeah? Using harsher language. Maybe he can get through and penetrate the hearts of these people who are listening to him. And somehow force them to come to his aid. He says, look, if I don't force you and I just ask you, you're not going to show up because it's not significant for you, this call of mine. If I force you, I'm not going to force you like the Hajjaj bin Yusufs and the Bani Umayyas and the Ibn Ziyads, right? How am I going to force you? With words, with a harsh tone, whatever. But if I do that, وَلَا اسْتَرَاحَ قَلْبُ مَنْ قَاسَاكُمْ. If I force you, my heart will not be at ease. I cannot rest assured that you guys are going to deliver because it's not something you believe in, you're not invested in. Yeah. So this really illustrates the madhlumiyya of Imam Ali alayhi salam, that he says, even if I was to force you to come fight, I have to always be worried and look over my shoulder. Are they going to betray me? Are they going to desert me? Are they going to backstab me? Yeah. Forget about deserting Amir al-Mu'minin. Are they going to backstab me? Are they going to push me off the edge if I get too close to the edge on the battlefield? Things like that. So he says, if I call you and ask you to come nicely, you're not going to care. It's not even important to you. If I force you, I have to worry more. I can't rest assured. Lastaraha, istaraha comes from raha. So for something to be comfortable and to be at ease. Yeah, my qalb is not going to be at ease. I'm not going to be able to rest assured that you're going to actually deliver. Yeah. But how do the Bani Umayyah or the Ibn Ziyads or the Hajjaj bin Yusufs of history, how do they force? Well, they force people to fight by threatening them, threatening their loved ones, the people's wealth, punishing and hurting people. That's how they do it. And so you'll have people who fear for their own lives, maybe, right? Who will go and leave Kufa for Karbala to fight Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Why? Because they've been threatened into doing so. Some, of course, are bought off. Some were just, scared and they go, The Hajjaj bin Yusufs, the likes of them, the Bani Umayyah, this is how they do it. Now the question is, in Islam, do the ends justify the means? Of course they don't. Of course they don't. And that's why Amir al-Mu'minin is never going to use this method to force. So when he says, if I force you, it's going to be like through the way that it's supposed to happen. If I was to force you the way it's supposed to happen, then I'm not going to be able to trust you. unfortunately. أعاليل بأضاليل. He says, your excuses are only of the type that bring about misguidance. You see, sometimes Islam gives you a loophole. Okay, Islam gives you a way out of things. For example, and so what I want to say is not all loopholes are always bad. Islam will give loopholes sometimes. For example, in the Quran, it says that that they asked the Prophet, "What's the difference between bay' and riba?" Riba means usury. Bay' means trade. So back then, unlike today, back then usury and this haram interest usually came in the form of goods. Okay, so for example, if you were to trade rice for rice, okay, you're not allowed to trade 2 kilograms, 2 pounds of rice for 1 pound of rice. That's riba, right? Something that you measure, something that you weigh, right? You can't trade it with something else that is also weighed of the same substance, but one is more, one is less, even if one is better quality. So, for example, in Islam, we have this where if you are trading 1 pound of rice that's good quality for 2 pounds of rice that is lower quality, even if they're worth the same amount, in Islam, this is not allowed. This is a riba. Back then, a riba was of this form more, you can say. And I think it's called a riba al-mu'amali versus a riba al-qardi, which we deal with today on a regular basis, where you take a loan or you borrow money with the condition that you're going to pay back more. Anyway, we're not talking about fiqh right now and Islamic law. What I want to say is this. If you want to trade 2 bags of rice for 1 bag of rice, and each of these, the 1 bag is higher quality versus the 2 bag one, if you want to do it the halal way, instead of trading these two, what do? You sell that 1 bag of rice, you get the money for it, and then use that money to buy the 2 bags of rice. So the Prophet was asked, or the Quran says that they ask, what's the difference between these two? But these two are similar. They're the same thing. إِنَّمَا الْبَيْعُ مِثْلُ الرِّبَى. Trade is just like usury. These two are the same. Like, what's the difference? You know what the Quran said? The Quran says, وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى. You know what the difference is? The difference is that one is haram, one is halal. Why? Well, God said so here. Okay? God has something in mind, so to speak, and as a result of that, He makes one halal, one haram. Of course, there's a reason to it, but here the Quran doesn't specify it. Yeah. So what's the loophole? There's a loophole, but these are the same. No, they're not the same. If Islam says this one's halal, this one's haram, here Imam Ali says, "A'alil bi'adalil." You bring excuses, but what types of excuses? Those excuses that cause and bring about misguidance for you. If a person goes and takes the route of riba, brothers and sisters, that equals misguidance. That equals disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If someone takes the route of tijara, of bay'ah, then it's halal. Then you can't say that this is a loophole. It's a way to do the transaction, but it's not one that is mixed with misguidance. So the excuses sometimes are acceptable. Sometimes they're not acceptable. Sometimes you take a loophole that's acceptable. Sometimes you take one that's not acceptable. In this case, Amir al-Mu'minin says, you're bringing up excuses to not fight. But these are excuses that bring about misguidance. Why? Because they are not valid excuses. A'alilu bi-adalil. A'alil is the plural of u'lula, and adalil is the plural of udlula. U'lula is that which you use, yes, to procrastinate something, to put something off, to not do something. Udlula is a means of misguidance. So Amir al-Mu'minin says these are excuses that you're bringing that are only a means of misguidance. وَسَأَلْتُمُونِي التَّطْوِيلِ دِفَاعَ ذِي الدَّيْنِ الْمَطُولِ. And you keep asking me for tatwil. Tatwil is to put something off again, right? So you keep asking me to put this fighting off. I mean, brothers and sisters, let's put ourselves in the Kufans' shoes and not scold them too much, because I think about this all the time. Like, if we were there, if I was there during that time, I would have probably been a lazy one as well. You never know. All we can say is alhamdulillah, we're not living in that kind of situation where we might fail the test. And are we failing or passing our tests today? But back then, think about it, brothers and sisters. Let's put ourselves in the Kufans' shoes. They were living their lives, right? Living their lives, and then all of a sudden, the third Khalifa is assassinated. The fourth Khalifa comes to power. Of course, none of this is to justify their shortcomings, but I'm just saying. And so the fourth Khalifa comes to power. It gets controversial because of the killing of Uthman. And then all of a sudden, a civil war is breaking out in Basra. And so the Khalifa of the Muslimin from Medina comes and settles in Kufa and takes that as his city and as the capital, kind of, where he is, dispatching troops from to fight Muawiyah and others, and Talha, Zubair, and the instigators of Jamal and Siffin and Nahrawan. You're living your life, and then all of a sudden now you have to go fight. Okay, the Battle of Jamal, victorious. You come back. Before you know it, Battle of Siffin takes place. And that one is a tough one, and one that is surrounded in controversy. And then you finally come back from that, and things aren't even working the way they were supposed to. This arbitration, this hakamiyya or tahkim, it takes a long time for it to take place. And when it does, things are vague and all that. And okay, let's get back to life. Then all of a sudden, the Khalifa who came to your city says, time to go back for another fight with Muawiyah. But on the way, you fight in the Battle of Nahrawan as well. And so after Nahrawan, he's saying, okay, let's continue our journey to Muawiyah and the lands that he is in. These people are done. They're tired. They don't want to. Of course, it's more than just being tired. I'll get to that later. But all in all, you're not interested anymore. And so you're going to tell this person that's telling you to go, this Khalifa, you're going to be like, hey, just, could you give us a little bit of time here? Let's take a break. But there's no time for a break right now. Yeah, to be strategic, you have to go and fight right now, he's saying. But yeah, these people are done. And so he says, Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam says, وَسَأَلْتُمُونِ التَّطْوِيلِ. You asked and urged for tatwil, for me to put things off. Yes, but and to delay them, but now is not the time for it. What was your argument? The same argument that Viddain al-Matul brings. A person who is in debt, and the person that they owe keeps calling them up and asking them to pay up. Okay, what is this person going to say? They're going to say, look, I don't have right now, I'll pay you later. Give me a little bit more time. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. Someone else is going to give me some money, then I'll pay you back, and all that stuff. Excuse after excuse after excuse. These excuses sometimes are not acceptable. Yes, this person is just putting things off. Viddain al-matul. Yes, a person who cannot pay back because of their own mistakes, because of their own shortcoming and laziness. Now they're asking to put off paying you back. Amir al-Mu'minin says that's how you guys are with me. Now the question is this, and I just want to address one question and then we'll end. The question is this, that was it the fact that it's just that they are tired or burnt out? Because if they're burnt out, their commander, their leader, Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam, should understand that and should cut them some slack. Well, number one, even if they're burnt out, even if they're tired, now is not the time to slack off. Right? We have stories, interesting stories of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, where his companions have, taken this long journey of Medina to Mecca for Umrah in a time where they are a minority, their lives are in danger a little bit, but they go for Umrah, and they're at peace right now with the mushrikeen, and the mushrikeen are watching them. Okay, they're tired, right? But the Holy Prophet tells them to jog when they're doing the tawaf, if I'm not mistaken, or to jog between Safa and Marwa to show that we're not tired, we're strong. Or after the battle of Uhud, after the battle of Uhud, the army of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was beat up. Like they were really in bad shape. And so after the battle of Uhud, when the Muslims retreat, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam comes to know that of the fact that the mushrikeen are now in pursuit of the Muslims who have retreated. And so he says, no matter what, we're going to go out again and fight them. But like half your army is like injured. It doesn't matter. Everyone mount your camels, horses, whatever. We're going out again. And the mushrikeen, once they find out that these guys are coming out again to fight, although they're bruised and battered, they go back to Mecca and they flee, kind of. So look at that. Like at the lowest of the lowest points, which is the battle after the battle of Uhud, still the Prophet is trying to show his the greatness and the strength of the Muslimin, because now's not the time to slack off. So here, assuming that they were burnt out, the people of Amir al-Mu'mineen's time, the Kufans, still it was not a time to slack off. But let us actually revisit this idea of the fact that were they really burnt out, or is it more than that? Some commentators, they've said that no, it wasn't that they were just burnt out. It was more than that. It was a matter of dunya. You see, the Muslim empire has grown more and more. War spoils have come in. People have become wealthier. People have become more comfortable, and things like that. And so these people, it's not just that they're burnt out. No, they're like, hey, we want to, we want to have some, we want to live a pleasurable, comfortable life. Leave us alone. Now, sometimes it's okay to say that. There are some people who think living a comfortable life is wrong always. No. There are certain situations, certain times, and I would say this is the rule in default, is to try your best to live a comfortable, maybe above average life. There's nothing wrong with that. But there will be certain situations that you have to step out of your comfort zone and make certain sacrifices. Of course, during the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen, this is what the situation calls for. It calls for this sacrifice. These people don't want to step out of their comfort zone, according to some of our commentators. They say these people just wanted to stick to dunya. That was the problem, at least with some of them. So it's, if you want to, have a verse of the Quran that talks about this, Surah Tawbah verse 38 is a good verse for this. It says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا ما لكم إذا قيل لكم انفروا في سبيل الله اثاقلتم إلى الأرض أرضيتم بالحياة الدنيا من الآخرة فما متاع الحياة الدنيا في الآخرة إلا قليل. Then what's the matter with you, O you who believe? So these are believers the Quran is talking about. What is the matter with you that when you are told go forth in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you sink heavily to the ground, you stick to this dunya? Are you pleased with the life of this world over the hereafter? Is that what it is? In other words, it's a rhetorical question. That means this is what the problem is. Is this the problem, that you are preferring this life over the next? Meaning, this is your problem. Let me just tell you, the Quran says, if this is the problem, which it is, while the goods of this world compared to the hereafter are nothing but small and insignificant. Just letting you know, FYI, that what this dunya has to offer compared to what the akhirah has to offer is qaleel, is very little, is minute, is insignificant. In other words, get your equations straight, get your priorities right. You're doing all of this for comfort and pleasure, but you got your priorities wrong here, right? Hashtag akhirah priorities, people. The Quran is shaking them. It's saying, it's time to go and move forth and forward in the way of Allah. But you all of a sudden stick to this dunya. You sink heavily into it. Why? Is it because you're burnt out, you're tired, things like that? No, it's because you seek the pleasure of this dunya, while the pleasure of this dunya is very little compared to that of the akhirah. And so it seems the same applies to the Kufans. The Kufans, they were living a good life. Okay, a battle or two they won, and so they got more war spoils, and just all in all, things weren't going too bad. Then war after war after war, they're like, what? Let's just live our comfortable lives. But no, Islam is at stake here. Amirul Mu'mineen and his life even are at stake here. Your leader, your commander, your Khalifa. So all of these things contribute to it being a very, very wajib thing upon them, and they didn't step up when they had to. And of course, I've spoken about this before as well, that this eventually ended with and culminated in the Shahada of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. If he had gone out with these people to fight Muawiyah, he wouldn't have gone back to Medina, or excuse me, Kufa, with little help, and eventually becoming shaheed in the masjid of Kufa. So this is the first part of the khutbah. The khutbah will continue, of course. Will continue. There is more in this khutbah as well. As you've seen, lots of harsh tone is used. And I really, when you read this khutbah is when you understand how madhloom, how lonely and estranged Amir al-Mu'mineen was. Inshallah, in our next session, we will continue with khutbah number 29. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And my salams to Brother Khurshid, Sister Rabab, and also the brother or sister who is called Labbaik Ya Ali Asghar Babul Hawaij. Thank you for tuning in, and inshallah next week. Till next week, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.